Hello and welcome to CATSweek. I'm Annalise Poorman. The Monroe County Commissioners met on July 19th. At the meeting, the board approved the B-Tech Fire and Security Agreement for the Justice Building. The agreement will supply the Justice Building with a replacement of the current swipe lock systems on 2 doors. Director Chief Technology Officer Greg Crone presented the following agreements.
I'll try to be quick so we don't have to break out sack lunches to get me through this.
You're buying, huh? Sorry.
Hope everybody's doing all right this morning. First item I have up here is for 2 of our swipe lock systems at the Justice Building. One of them is a swipe lock on the exterior of the building leading into the Sheriff's Department that is non-standard to all the rest of our swipe lock systems. It's begun to have issues. We've had to have it worked on, so it's time to replace it and get it current with our other system. The other belongs to our server room. It has been defunct for a while. It doesn't communicate, so we have to use key override to get into that server room. So we need to have that lock set replaced as well. So this request is to approve the replacement of both of those.
The board also approved an agreement with B-Tech Fire and Security for a replacement of a security camera on the exterior of the Johnson Hardware building.
Yes, one of the 180-degree security cameras mounted on the exterior of the building has failed. We've had it worked on a couple of times. B-Tech did what they could to keep it going, but it is defunct at this time. Presents a security issue for us. So this request is to approve the replacement of that camera. I do recognize the price tag for one camera replacement. Most of that is absorbed in the cost of that camera. These exterior security cameras, the price has gone up with those with everything else. So.
The board also approved a quote from Matrix Integration to install hardwired network access for the county jail. The jail will be converting storage space into office space and requires internet access to these areas.
So as we all know, the jail's been doing a lot of changing around, some changes to office space, things like that. They recently decided to make an area into office space that was currently used as storage. So it provides electrical but does not provide Ethernet networking access. So this request is for Matrix Integration to come in and install 2 pairs or 4 drops for network access for multiple desks inside that space.
The Monroe County Commissioners will meet again on July 26th. The Monroe County Public Library Board of Trustees met on July 19th. Director of Public Services, Josh Wolf, gave the monthly director's report.
It's been a whirlwind month with the opening of the new branch. We enjoyed another significant increase in registered patrons, 722 in June, thanks in large part to the Southwest grand opening and the branch's first month of operations. Just to share a few stats from the first month of the Southwest branch, we created 525 new library cards there, 495 of which were patrons who registered as new Southwest patrons. We triggered 1,664 holds. 3,193 patrons checked out 18,180 items at the branch, and 9,935 items were checked in at Southwest, although many of them were routed back here. We do expect to have door count statistics beginning in August, but we are doing a little fine-tuning and tweaking of the RFID readers and the software that comes with those. So hopefully we'll have solid numbers on the door count gate system then. Also, just want to talk briefly about the summer reading. The Children's Services is on track to reach pre-pandemic levels of participation. By early July, Children's Services had given out nearly 2,600 summer reading guides, which pretty much closely mirrors the entire summer's participation last year. Teen Services had given out 447 summer reading guides, which is their highest number since 2019. But the big story is the adult summer reading program, which has over 1,589 participants. I have not checked the previous year's numbers, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say they've never been this high for adult summer reading participation. And it's really due to 3 things. Maggie Hutt, the librarian, designed a great, really fun program. Communications and Marketing made a really cool looking guide this year that's very similar to the younger ones, although a little more sophisticated. And the children's and teens staff are actively encouraging caregivers to participate on their own but alongside their children. So that's been really cool. Teen Services also held a Juneteenth celebration for all ages where community members were able to celebrate the holiday at MCPL by playing giant board games, making themed crafts together, and enjoying food from locally black-owned restaurant Eric Gordon's Greek's Pizzeria. Teens who attended the event were able to participate in making a Freedom Quilt poster, which is now displayed in the ground floor to commemorate this year's celebration. And many newcomers enjoyed being able to join in the festivities and learn more about the holiday. Finally, the Bookmobile made its annual appearance at Bloomington Parks and Rec's Touch a Truck event, which saw over 1,400 kids and caregivers touring the vehicle and learning about mobile library services in the summer reading program. Competing against fire engines, cement mixers, and excavators, the Bookmobile was the favorite stop for many young bookworm, one of whom enviously asked our staff, "Do you actually get to live here?" Which I think it feels like that for some of them, probably.
The board discussed the renewal of a contract with Polaris, their catalog system program. Wolf shared the details of their decision to continue to contract with the company.
For anybody who may be tuning in who doesn't know, Polaris is our integrated library system, our ILS. It's the platform that manages our entire catalog of collections, our patron accounts, all of our circulation, our discovery system. It's basically the reason we don't have a card catalog or stamp cards anymore. We've used Polaris successfully since 2006 when we converted from a command line system. In 2019 and 2020, we underwent a major ILS review, during which we spoke with other libraries, took a close look at several of Polaris's competitors. We ultimately decided at that time to stay with Polaris, but we did make some pretty major changes. We migrated our frontline staff client to Leap, which is the customer service client that they use. Currently, we're also exploring plans to further develop and invest in some of the marketing and discovery options that Polaris offers, such as Vega. We're now proposing to renew our contract with Polaris for 5 years in order to take advantage of the savings attached to a longer contract.
The board voted unanimously to approve the contract renewal. The next Monroe County Public Library Board of Trustees meeting will be held on August 16th. The Bloomington Board of Public Works met on July 18th. At the meeting, Assistant City Attorney Chris Wheeler spoke on behalf of the Utility Department. Wheeler explained an upcoming project that they're working on to install stormwater infrastructure on the city's remnant properties.
Good evening, Chris Wheeler with City Legal. The Utilities Department is in the process of installing stormwater infrastructure throughout the city on any of the city properties that are considered remnant properties in order to help facilitate and accommodate stormwater runoff throughout the city. There are 3 properties that have been identified in the staff report that was provided to the board in its packet this evening. One of those properties is owned by City of Bloomington and therefore Board of Public Works. This property is located in an area where brownfield remediation has occurred in the past, and as a result, the Utilities Department is taking steps to ensure that these 3 parcels do not need any soil remediation prior to the installation of stormwater infrastructure. Through this process, City of Bloomington Utilities has applied to the Indiana Finance Authority to receive funding to do the investigation and any follow-up soil remediation. The Indiana Finance Authority requires access to the property so that it and its contractor can come on the property, assuming that we are approved to have this financing provided by IFA. They would need to come onto the property to do the investigatory work on the phase 1 for the brownfield investigation. That is why we are presenting to the board tonight this right of access or site access agreement, and ask that the board review and approve and sign the access agreement. It needs to go in as part of the application to the IFA. I'm happy to try and answer any questions.
The board voted to approve the Indiana Brownfields Program Phase 1 site agreement 2-0. Next, engineering field specialist Paul Kerberg explained that Duke Energy is beginning the second phase of their Bloomington Reliability Project. It will link the Dunn Street substation to the 11th Street substation.
Paul Kerber with engineering. Duke Energy is starting phase 2 of their Bloomington Reliability Project. This will link the Dunn Street substation to the 11th Street substation, and they'll be installing new transmission line poles and a few distribution poles as well. This will be along North Dunn Street from 13th to 17th, and then along 17th from Dunn west to about Jackson Street. They're requesting lane and sidewalk closures as they work along their route, and the temporary closures will be in place from July 19th, 2023 to about December 31st, 2023. And we've walked the route with representatives from Duke. We've identified a few problem areas, and we've been working very closely with them. And we've reviewed their maintenance of traffic plans, and it's very, very detailed on the sidewalk closures and lane closures. There won't be any full street closures, but just lane closures. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Wells & Wells Construction sought approval from the board for a sidewalk closure in front of 2038 North Walnut Street from August 1st, 2023 to May 31st, 2025. A new 8-story mixed-use building with commercial space will be under construction during this time.
Hello, Maria McCormick from Engineering. Wells & Wells Construction is requesting a closure of the sidewalk in front of 2038 North Walnut Street. For reference, it's the old Great Wall of China restaurant space or lot from August 1st actually until only May 31st of 2025 to install construction fencing around the perimeter of the site for the duration of the construction. There's a crosswalk to the south of this property that leads to the west side of Walnut Street along Miller Showers Park where there is a sidewalk. There's a crosswalk to the north of the property that will allow pedestrians to cross back over to the east side of Walnut Street. They're constructing an 8-story mixed-use building with commercial space, 172 dwelling units for a total of 463 bedrooms. The project's construction entrance will be off the private road to the northwest of the project. A condition for approval of this by the Plan Commission will require that a 10-foot sidewalk be replaced. Currently, it's a 48-inch sidewalk with a minimum of an 8-foot wide tree plot. So the sidewalk will be rebuilt at the completion of this closure.
During public comment, Bloomington resident Greg Alexander shared his concerns about the 2-year sidewalk closure.
Hello, my name is Greg Alexander. This is extremely problematic. It's basically 2-year closure. Like the Duke project you were just hearing about, it's going to be about 6 months, but they're only going to close 2 weeks at a time, you know. But this is going to be just straight up. They're going to put up the fences before they do anything else, and then the sidewalk's going to be closed for 2 years. And they're going to ask for an extension at the end of it. It'll take more than 2 years at the end of it. We've got a lot of experience with this kind of project, and it's just completely inexcusable. The crosswalks that they're recommending the use of are not safe crosswalks. Somebody died at one of those crosswalks about 5 years ago. The cars are going about 45 miles an hour. Cars don't stop at crosswalks if the speed limit is over 30. That's just an engineering fact. You can ask our engineers, they should know that. And so drivers will not yield for those crosswalks, and there will be very hazardous crossings. And there's a lot of traffic right there. So because there's a building just south of it, this is kind of like a dead area for pedestrian connectivity, but it's not a dead area for pedestrian users. There are now 1,000 people living just south of this proposed site. And those people need to be able to get to like the corner store for them. That little gas station that's on the corner there is where they're gonna go to buy soda and cigarettes and vapes and all the crap that kids buy. And in order to get there from the building just south, they're gonna have to actually go south, cross the road, travel on the sidewalk, and then cross again. That's 2 crossings. The MUTCD says that you have to, in a closure, you have to replicate the desirable characteristics. The most desirable characteristic of that sidewalk is not crossing Walnut Street twice. That is such an incredible burden to cross Walnut Street twice and to go backwards to do it. And it's going to be for 2 years. People are going to be walking in the street. People are going to be jaywalking. People are going to be doing unadvisable crossings. People will get hurt. And there's one other detail from the MOT. It looks like they're going to preserve the bike lane. I'm just going to tell you, I've seen a lot of these. They're not. So we're going to also lose that bike lane. That is a miserable bike lane, but it is all we have. Other than that, we're biking in the road in Walnut. And Walnut right there is very, very wide. We could put barricades and we could just sacrifice the lane of Walnut and put in a protected bike lane / a multi-use path along the side of the road there where they don't have to cross the road. It would be on the same side of the road. We have plenty of space for that if we prioritize pedestrians that already live there over the drivers. But if we don't, then, screw those pedestrians. So thank you. I highly recommend you vote this down.
The board did not vote on the sidewalk closure and will discuss the issue with staff in greater detail. The Bloomington Board of Public Works will meet next on August 1st. The Richland Bean Blossom School Board met on Monday, July 17th. The Assistant Superintendent, Matt Irwin, presented the 2024 budget calendar to the board.
Yeah, so this is just an informational. There's nothing here for you to vote on. So I just try to bring this to you a month in advance before we get started with the process. Nothing looks new on the budget calendar than what you've seen the last couple of years. Still follow that process of in August, asking for your permission to advertise. In September, we do our hearings, and in October, we adopt. So still following that same process. The last few years, I think really ever since I've been here, we haven't had a work session on the board, a work session on the budget. If you guys felt like there was a need to do that, I'd always be willing to do that. At this point, what I try to do is just continue to update you on what things look a little bit different, but the process looks very, very similar. There won't be a whole lot of huge changes in the way that the mechanics of it work. And then obviously when we meet in August and September, I'll give you more and more info. If there's any major pieces of it, I usually reach out to you during the month and say, hey, here's something that's going on, or reach out as we work on debt service and landing our total tax rate, continuing to work on that management of that. Work with Stiefel as we talk about these bonds coming on and how it works within our total tax rate management goal and all of that. So we'll continue to have those conversations here leading up to me working on the budget, because it's important to me being able to do the budget. And I've already started working on that and going through things line by line and looking into all the different pieces so that we know what adjustments need to be made on that as well. So work on that's already begun. Once we close out the month of June is when it really starts moving pretty quick, because you need all of those numbers to be able to start the budget anyway. So with that, I'll take any questions that you might have.
The Richland Bean Blossom School Board will meet again on August 21st at 6 p.m. The Bloomington Utility Service Board met Monday, July 17th, 2023. At the start of the meeting, a motion was made to change the agenda and to add an additional petitions and communications item at the beginning of the meeting. The adjustment gave the petitioners the opportunity to avoid sitting through the entire meeting in order to present. The petitioners, Eric Kaymond and Mi Song Kim, spoke to the board about an increase in water fees that occurred due to a water line break.
So Mrs. Kim and her family, they operate the Korea restaurant on 4th Street, and they are not from United States of America. They don't speak English. This is not their first language, so it just kind of is what it is. So I guess what happened was we had a water line break in our basement. Our basement was flooded, and their water bill went up astronomically. If you could please turn to the back section. In February, their bill was $247. In March, $247. $315 in April of this year. And then we had a water line break. In May, went to $645. June, $2,832, and then we fixed the water line break, and now it went down to from over $2,000 or $2,800 down to $1,415. So clearly, their average bill was somewhere around the vicinity of like $247 to $315. That was pretty typical use of the building. They had this water line break, and the city of Bloomington said they put some kind of a notice on their front door. I'm not gonna lie to you, I don't think they would have recognized what that was or been able to read it. And it doesn't seem exactly fair for somebody who works very hard, is not from this country, and I think 4th Street got noticed on Forbes for being this diversity and culturally significant street full of restaurants that have, authentic food. And it just doesn't seem right for somebody that doesn't speak English, who contributes a lot to the local community, and has a great service, is part of our community, and there was a water line break. They didn't know what they were receiving on their door, and we got denied from the city of Bloomington Utilities, and I'm just not exactly sure if the goal here was, I don't think their goal here was that they intentionally didn't do anything about it. I think they just clearly didn't know anything about it. So when the city of Bloomington did inform them about this water line issue, I just don't think they knew exactly what was going on. I just don't think there's any chance. So if you all could please reconsider, lowering their bill or at least giving some kind of a credit, it would be very, very much appreciated. And I think going forward, we all learned a lesson here. And, they have their daughter that is their translator, and she does not live here, but she takes all the calls and does all of the, English speaking for them. And, hopefully, this is just a one and done thing. And I think we've all learned our lesson, and we just hope we can all reconsider here.
Director of Utilities Vic Kelson explained the city typically can waive sewer bills. However, they do not normally waive water bills.
So typically we're with sewer bills, we can waive a portion if the water did not go to the sewer, but it was explained to us that the water largely went to a floor drain that ultimately goes to sewer. So we didn't have discretion really to make that change, and we never do refunds for water unless the board approves it. So our circumstance was that there wasn't any justification under the normal rules for us to waive anything on this one.
Kelson explained that since they do not make any money from delivering water, they have to charge the cost it takes to deliver the water.
We don't make money on anything that we do, so the cost of the water is, we charge what it costs us to deliver the water. And we charge what it costs us to collect and treat the sewer water. So if the board wants to make an adjustment, that's entirely up to the board, but that's really outside staff jurisdiction.
Assistant City Attorney Chris Wheeler shared the rules and regulations that the city has on unusually high or low bills.
Just as a reminder for the board, the way the law works with regards to unusually high or unusually low bills, when you look at our rules and regulations, we have modeled the way that we would look at the adjustment of water and wastewater bills based upon how the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission has put together its policies. We're not regulated under this particular section by the IURC under either water or wastewater, but they have put forth actual administrative code policies on how they would like to see utilities handle these sorts of situations. And many years before I ever showed up to be the utilities attorney, the policies and procedures put forth by this board model the IURC. And so when you look at the IURC at 170 IAC 6-1-14, you find adjustment of bills, and it reads the same as what our policies are, which is basically to look at whether the meter was operating correctly on the water side. If the water meter is not working correctly, then certainly we should do something to correct that bill. But if the water meter properly has read the amount of water going through and being used, it's not the utility or this board's job to try and figure out what the water was used for, whether they used it to fill up a pool, whether they used it for cooking or cleaning, whether they used it just to pour it down their toilet because of a leaky toilet. We don't ask that question. We just look at whether the water was used. And in those situations where there hasn't been any identification of a error on the meter side, that the meter itself is reading incorrectly, we have historically not corrected the water bill. Where you can get some relief then is what we were talking about, is on the wastewater side. If you can show that the wastewater, that the water that was used because of leak or toilet running somehow did not enter into the stormwater system to then get treated, we would be in a position to adjust the bill. I don't hear that here. So our policies as a utility department are that the bill does not get adjusted.
Wheeler advised the board to adhere to the precedent so previous petitioners will know that they have been treated fairly.
Our policies as a utility department are that the bill does not get adjusted. If this board wishes to make an adjustment, I would caution it to be certain that it's not doing things arbitrarily so that somebody could then complain later that they didn't get their bill adjusted, that we're not doing it somehow capriciously, that we're doing it even-handedly across the board. But my recollection is, as Jim has just stated, at least as long as I've been the attorney for this board, is that we haven't made adjustments in these situations. It's a shame, but we do it across the board, and sometimes you get some pretty harsh results.
The Bloomington Utilities Service Board was unable to provide any aid other than payment adjustments to the restaurant and tenant. There was a motion to continue, which passed unanimously. The next Bloomington Utilities Service Board will meet Monday, July 31st, 2023. And that is all for CATSweek. Thank you for joining us. For CATS and WFHB, I'm Annalise Poorman.